welcome back to our recurring mental health podcast. Today we have Dr. Nahid Dave, and this is the first of two parts where we'll be discussing how COVID-19 has actually affected everybody's mental health. So, Nahid, do you want to start off by telling us what your practice has been like and how it has changed, what the patient profile is?
Okay, so over the past 6 months, there has been although the baseline, the theme has been anxiety, but the way people have been presenting has been very different. So if I tell you very simply, initially when it started off, when there were a few cases in the city or here and there, so people were kind of worried that, what is true? Is it really as bad as it sounds? And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the fear wasn't that much. Then it started happening in people's buildings, in people's vicinity. So they would be like, my building is under lockdown. And when I see the ambulance reeling in, I start getting anxiety symptoms. What if it's me? What if there's one more person? What if there's a death? So that was happening. Then after that, from my building getting quarantined to someone in my house, my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle is getting affected. And that was more real. The threat was more real.
Yeah.
Where you had a few symptoms, some people survived, some people did. Then I started having patients who had lost a few family members. Like, I had one patient who lost her father and her father-in-law in the same month. So that was, and plus her husband was in the hospital. So that kind of turmoil.
Yeah.
Then over time, now it has been like, my relatives, my friends, so many people got infected, these many got better, these many didn't. But then that looming anxiety of, whatever happens to my parents, that is still there. Also, I'm seeing a lot of post-COVID anxiety. So a lot of people who've been in hospitals, gotten better, are out, but are facing anxiety symptoms. Something like, they tend to obsessively keep checking on the pulse ox or going to the doctor repeatedly if you have a cough, because there's a lot of news about reinfection, and what if I get it again? And keeping themselves quarantined excessively, not even going out for basics that is required.
Yeah.
So there is that, and not just anxiety as in worry, excessive worry, but anxiety disorder. So people who never had anxiety before, people who have lived a fairly stable mental health life, have started developing anxiety symptoms post-COVID. Also, the trauma that you go through when you get the first fever and the first cough to getting the report of COVID positive,
the
to
anticipation of the report.
from there to that. Yeah. So then, and those 2 days from giving your swab to getting the report is hell.
Absolutely.
And then when you get the report, you start imagining the worst. So this has been the transition overall, and now it's very much in people's homes. So I've not met a single person who doesn't. I've not met a single person who doesn't know somebody who's infected.
Exactly. It's like it's part of our inner circle. All of us. Pehle it used to be ki, somebody 3 buildings away, some friend. Now it's your close friends, your cousins, your families, or you yourself. And while we've been on lockdown, quarantine, and all of these things that we've never seen before, it's new for all of us. At the same time, of course, there was a more practical problem also arising, which was the economy, and the fact that there were a lot of people who were losing their jobs. We've spoken about this earlier also. That was also a big factor of stress. So now that we have unlocked and people have started going back to work, everybody wants to hold on to their jobs, because in this economy, the fact that you have a place to work and a salary coming to your house is a big deal. So everybody is going off to work, but at the same time, they are very, very scared, because most of us are living with our parents or our in-laws who are that vulnerable age group, and everybody is worried when they are, especially when they are traveling by public transport or going to office, eating with their friends in the canteens. We do have a space constraint, especially in the metros where all these offices are located.
Correct.
So young adults who probably might get away with an asymptomatic or mild disease have this constant fear and guilt that what if I get it home to my parents, to my children, to people who belong to the vulnerable population. And that is something very new that I've seen. They are so stressed. Obviously they're stressed with work, but at the same time they have this great fear that they'll bring it home and something will happen with their parents. And I do know a couple of cases. These stories spread so quick, right? That somebody was working somewhere, they came home and father had to go on a ventilator, because he had pre-existing diseases. Or someone, I have another friend of mine who was a physiotherapist. She went home, her mother-in-law was detected COVID positive. I mean, nothing happened. But the implications in an Indian society for something like that happening. True. So that again was a big factor of stress for her. So how do we go about this? This is a question I get asked a lot, and I thought maybe you will be able to answer it better from your perspective. So how should we help them?
So I'll tell you what, this is a very real problem. And a lot of people are looming under this guilt. Once someone in the family is infected, the first thought is, I'm the only one who leaves the house.
Yes.
So I have probably given it to him. Yeah. So that guilt, and God forbid if it goes south, if you develop, you need hospitalization or death, then the guilt increases even more because you feel directly responsible for what has happened.
Yeah.
Now, although we know that how corona spreads and what we can do for precautions, and despite people taking precautions, it's still happening, but somewhere we have to understand that there are limitations to what a person can and cannot do. Also, there are a lot of people who never left their home and still gotten the infection either through grocery items or some small interaction, with the garbage man or with the milkman or something really, really small. So it need not be that. And secondly, in this process of guilt, like as soon as your father or your father-in-law or someone at home is infected, you are so filled with that negativity and self-blame, and you take over responsibility for what has happened that you're not present for your family. So instead of it was me, we can change it to what now.
Right.
Because what has happened, and we change it to what now and do the best you can so you are present for your family members and everyone else.
Right.
And it is a very natural thing to do in such a case that as soon as one person gets infected, the first question we ask is, did they go out? Did they meet someone? Or what? How did they get the infection?
Yes.
So instead of that, we can focus on what should be done and the treatment protocol and mental health of the patient and the family members.
Right. And it's not just the patient, this is what a lot of people don't understand. It's when one person in the family falls sick, the patient, yes, is important, but the caregivers also, they go through so much.
Very much.
When they are giving and they are taking care. And that, I think, is an important aspect that everybody needs to focus on,
all forms of caregivers find it difficult, but in COVID it's even worse because you're not just taking care of someone who's sick, but you're also exposing yourself.
Exactly.
So there is this very thin line.
Yeah. And another big problem that I see, that even I sense a lot nowadays, is that we've been isolated, we've all been cooped up in our homes, for a really long time, and it's been 6 months. It's a long time. So we don't have much to do. We can't step out. We don't meet friends. And the only entertainment we have is either television, social media, internet, a screen in front of you. And the news of late, initially it was just the bombardment of the numbers, kitne cases hue, how many deaths, case fatalities, statistics, lots of graphs, which most people wouldn't understand, and they would just, see some basic numbers and think that, oh my God, this is getting out of hand. Now I think, they're not talking about that because people were getting very affected, and the news has shifted focus into some very crazy things. And given how much everybody hates 2020, it's more than anything else because we've only been exposed to negative news from March, I think. So how does that affect your mental health also? Even though it's not happening in your house, you're still hearing a journalist screaming about what the nation wants to know and what they don't want to know. So how does that affect you?
So I'll tell you what, it begins with the source of entertainment, because the news is the only thing that is changing in our life. Everything else is pretty much static. So people tend to watch news as a form of entertainment, like, oh, I just want to know what's happening and what else to do. But it affects you in more ways than you know. Firstly, if I have to tell you a simple example, if you read a piece of information, or if I tell you something like a 35-year-old man died, okay, if I show you a picture of that 35-year-old man with his 2 kids, and I show you a video of him playing with his kids, The video will have the most impact compared to the first piece of news.
Right.
So how the same news is presented to you makes a whole lot of difference. Whether it's just your visual sense or whether it is even your auditory sense, how many senses are you getting involved into that? Not just that, when you're watching the news, a part of your emotions are also you're getting angry with the news, you're getting irritated with the news. You're connecting a part of your life to the news. So when you see a bunch of adults behaving in a certain way, you tend to think that my kid is out there and this is what is happening. So you connect to it in ways more ways than you can imagine. In a lot of ways, all the controversies and things that are happening in the news, it's like watching a Sidney Sheldon book come alive. Every day there's a new chapter, there's a new twist. So it may seem like entertainment, it may seem like I'm just having some fun out of it, but it affects your subconscious. So how it affects is somewhere it affects the way you perceive the world. So you tend to think, what's the point of anything? Why even try? We're anyway going to die. Or basically, even if you do everything right, something bad could happen. So this hopelessness sets in. This helplessness sets in. What can I do? Everything is really going bad. So over time, your hope, your perceptions, your positivity tends to dwindle down. And your level of anxiety also goes on increasing. So it's not that I watch a piece of news and I'll have a panic attack. That's not going to happen. But over time, your vulnerability to develop a disorder is going to increase.
It has a cumulative effect.
I would suggest, as a cumulative effect. So I would suggest that, okay, we need to be informed about what is happening. But if I'm not informed right away, if I get to know a piece of information 2 hours from now, it's not going to make a huge difference. Okay, so instead of having notifications of news, we could switch off those notifications and consume news once a day. So I watch a piece, I consume news say once a day or twice a day for 10 minutes. Preferably read than watch. You're getting the same information, but it's not emotionally troubling you. So mental health perspective, yes, you should read the news twice a day, 10 minutes, that's about it.
So you're informed, but you're not affected at the same time.
Yes, true.
Another point to be noted with the news is that do you think a lot of people are getting angrier? There's anxiety, but there's also a lot of anger, and people seem to want to vent. When they are attaching it to a certain person on screen or a certain character who they don't meet every day. And there are these heated debates, and people are losing friends, with all of this. I mean, it's getting quite out of hand. How does that work?
So anger is like the tip of the iceberg, okay? So there is a lot happening behind the anger. So whenever you relate to someone, whenever you empathize with someone, whenever you're angry with someone, you're relating an aspect of that person to something in your life where you missed out an opportunity because of somebody, or you probably felt endangered, or you felt vulnerable because of someone, and that you are relating to that piece of information and taking sides. And although those people and that piece of information is never going to affect your personal life, but it becomes personal. So if someone is not on the same side, if they are taking some other side, you tend to look at that person as a personal enemy, that they don't get it, they don't understand how difficult it is. So unnecessarily, where something which is happening in someone else's life, just because the way you are consuming that news is becoming a personal battle between you and the people close to you. It's true. So I think that this relation, if you want to break this connection and see news more objectively the way it was meant, when we used to watch news on Doordarshan, we were just told this is happening. It was simpler times.
A relay of facts, that's it. No opinions.
This is what is happening. There is no, oh my God.
Right. It was simpler, I think.
I think that would be much simpler. So in the current times, we can't ask people to shift to Doordarshan news, but instead read it. Don't watch.
Rather than watching, because that could affect you in more ways than you can imagine. So we had done.
You're not seeing. Go on.
So we had done our first podcast for mental health, where we spoke about how the lockdown was affecting everyone, and this was right at the beginning. And now it's been 6 months. People are pretty frustrated. Everybody wants to get out. Everybody wants to, meet their friends, families, cousins, at least have some human interaction. I mean, we are social beings, at the end of the day. And somehow there is, again, like we said at the beginning, there are two groups of people. One that is really, really scared and, in this panic mode all the time, that something, kuch to ho jayega, I'm not going out, you're not going out. Parents and older people to are, poor thing, they're really like shut off from the world. At the same time, there's another group who is totally indifferent. Ki yaar, ye COVID mein kuch hota hi nahi hai. They look at people who've probably had, an asymptomatic or a mild illness. And they say, yaar, kuch nahi hota hai, kya virus, ye sab jhoot hai. And that gap seems to be widening, So people are becoming, the ones who are indifferent are becoming more indifferent. And the ones who were panicking are panicking even more. So as a clinician, when I tell people, it's becoming more difficult to explain to them that there is a middle ground. You have to take your precautions.
Yeah.
And at the same, you be vigilant, don't run in extremes. Take your precautions, go about your life with a few minor changes here and there. And you should be okay, if you follow the steps right. But I don't understand, how do we get this point across to, more people? There are very few who actually end up listening to you.
Yeah, so the thing is that over here, even, if you see the kind of news that was given to us a few months back and now it's a lot different. So it appears somewhere in the headlines and that's about it. Right. So that is one aspect. Now what happens is people have been at home for such a long period of time that they want to experience this so-called new normal. And since there are no rules of new normal, people have made their own rules about new normal. So I go about meeting my friends, I'm going for treks, I'm going to resorts, I'm going to nearby hill stations in the name of we have to learn to live with it.
Yeah, okay? Restaurants are opening up soon, I believe.
Yeah, so people are going about all these things, and the funny part is that I see a lot of selfies without masks. I see a lot of people who are not taking the adequate precautions. Yeah. And the deal is, I'll tell you what, all of this changes, entirely when one person in the family gets a fever or someone starts coughing. Yeah. Okay, then it just changes drastically to, oh my God, what's happening, waiting for the report and all of it. But the point is, why wait for that to happen from the beginning? So there are this absolute extreme of people who want to live their life because frankly, who likes sitting at home? But then despite living outside, people are not willing to follow the precautions. And when a family member is affected, then they go through all the guilt and all the anxiety and all the kind of worry. So I think that it's time that people learn to balance a little bit and delay that gratification. This is a symptom to have instant gratification.
How do you do that? We live in a generation where, we've all grown up on this instant gratification. You want to eat something, there's an app that will deliver whatever you want to your doorstep. And I remember this exact words. There was a child I met, mother and child I met long ago for Ganpati or something, 2-3 years ago. And the child knew how to use the Ola and Uber apps, he would check which one is cheaper and I'm going to pick them out. And I was very impressed. I said, this kid is 4 and he knows how to use all of these things, and all these kids are so tech friendly. And the mother just looked at me and said, don't praise him. This boy does not know what it's like to go down and wait for a cab and for the cab to come and say, nahi jayega. It's important. I mean, they're just so used to getting everything so easily and getting it exactly the way they want it. Then what kind of a generation are we looking at in the future? And that's exactly what is problematic today in this situation. All of us are so used to that gratification.
True. This impulsivity, this instant gratification, and living in denial that this is not a problem, that we have it under control. I mean, why wait when you can have it?
Yeah.
So that this is the problem. Instant gratification is the problem. It's not just related to COVID, taking precautions, but everything else. Be it relationships, be it food control, self-discipline. Everywhere this comes into play. That I don't want to go through the pain of anything. Yeah. So I think that if we want to solve this problem, we can't just solve it as just pick it up and solve it. It is a whole lifestyle change where you have to understand that from the beginning, a parent or if you have a friend, you get used to being in discomfort. Dude, the frustration tolerance is extremely low. Like very early, I tell myself I can't take this. I don't want to have to wait.
True.
So I don't want to do this. So over there it has to begin. So I think that if you can make some people at least realize that it's not about going out, it's not about meeting your friends, it's about learning how to bear discomfort.
Right.
How
Which is
fast
so
do you
important.
tell yourself I can't take it?
Yeah. Very true.
So a moment longer, a day longer. It's like I'll go a week later, I'll go a month later. Can you do that to yourself? Simple. If I tell you right now that you switch off your mobile for 24 hours, how many people can actually do that?
I don't even think I could.
And what you feel after the 6th hour is anxiety.
Yes. That's true. That's absolutely true. So how do we explain this aspect to the patients as far as COVID goes?
So as far as COVID goes, I think that when we have, this is a major issue with millennials or younger population, or maybe even those who are in their 30s. You have to tell people or tell them stories of how people like them and how their lives have changed, or how this indifference has turned into anxiety and anxiety disorder just because they weren't a little careful. There are people who are living in guilt because they've lost a parent because of negligence. This counts as negligence.
True.
This is not just indifference, this is negligence.
Right.
So I think a few pet stories. I have a few pet stories that I tell people how their lives have changed just because they were a little indifferent or a little
Could you
less
share
careful.
some with us?
Probably that will make a difference. No, just this patient of mine recently. He is a doctor, so he used to go to the hospital, and his father got infected. Father got infected, had to be admitted, went through plasma therapy and all of it, but he came back with progressive interstitial disease and pulmonary fibrosis. He's on oxygen at home, probably going to deteriorate further. Lot of financial burden on the family, and every single day living hell for this doctor. Now, he knows that he had to go to work.
Right.
He knows he did all that he could, but yet, now for all you know, the father could have got it from someone else, but then he's like the prime suspect here. So he's living with guilt throughout.
Right.
So now, to some extent, he can one day be okay with it that I was doing the right thing. But if you got it home because you went on a trek or for a birthday party, how are you going to live with yourself?
Right.
That is something we need to think about.
Right. So basically, weigh your pros and cons, risk-benefit ratio, like we say in medicine.
Yeah, risk-benefit.
Risk-benefit ratio, and weigh your risks and the benefits of doing whatever you've decided to go. Like probably this doctor did not have an option; he had to continue working. But maybe fun activities could wait for some time longer. Maybe you could pull through or try doing something virtually as far as you can. And hope that we get
and you could go out and not take your mask off.
Very importantly, because selfies are not more important than your life.
You can take maskies, that's the new thing. Wear the mask and take a selfie.
Right. That would be nice. So I think we'll end this podcast here today, and we'll come back for part 2 with Meghna. This is Meghna Pradeep, who is our psychologist, and we'll talk about this was the anxiety that the young adults, like us, are feeling when they go out to work and come home. But what happens to the parents and the in-laws and everybody who we have cooked up at home and don't allow, to go about their daily activities because we are worried for them. So we'll be discussing that in part 2 of this podcast. This is all we have for today. Nahid, I'll see you soon next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. See you.
Bye.